Listen to me, fellas. You know what most women expect after a period of no contact? They expect you to come back needing something. They think you're going to reach out because you've been sitting there in your feelings, wondering what happened, feeling sauced, hoping for closure, craving reassurance. That's what most women are prepared for. That's the narrative they've built in their heads. She'll reach out eventually. She'll ask me why I disappeared. She'll want to know if I ever cared. She'll need answers. And you know what? That expectation is their comfort zone that gives them control. Because if you come back needing something from them, it confirms the story they've already told themselves, that they still hold the power, that there still is control of the emotional dynamic. But the move she won't expect is you coming back with nothing to ask for. No begging, no explaining, no emotional deep dive, just stillness, clarity, peace. When you've done no contact, right? Not as a tactic, not as a game, but as a true healing process, you come out the other side with a kind of emotional self-sufficiency that's incredibly powerful because you no longer need her to explain anything. You're not looking for a justification. You've already sat with the discomfort. You've already asked yourself the hard questions. You've already done the work that people normally expect someone else to do for them. And when you show up like that, when you reach out, not with open wounds, but with calm confidence, that is a moment she will never see coming. It's confusing in the best way. She won't know where to place you because the version of you that she thought she left behind no longer exists. That version would have chased. That version would have demanded a conversation. That version would have handed her the emotional upper hand. But the man who shows up after no contact, the one who doesn't come with emotional debt, that man is someone she has to recalibrate around. She doesn't know how to predict his moves anymore. And that unpredictability, that's where your power lies. You see, most people, not just women, but people in general, rely on patterns. They find comfort in knowing how someone will react. If they ghost, they expect anger. If they pull away, they expect pursuit. If they hurt you, they expect you to either lash out or come back needing resolution. So when you break that pattern, when you return not to reignite the fire, but simply to acknowledge the experience and move forward, it sends a very different message. It says, I've already processed this. I'm already whole. Imagine getting a message that doesn't say, why did you leave? Or did you ever care about me? But something more like, hey, I just wanted to say, I hope you're doing well. I've learned a lot over the last few months, and I genuinely wish you the best. Now, that doesn't mean you're trying to get back together. It doesn't mean you're pretending nothing happened. It simply means you've reached a level of peace that's rare. And because it's rare, it's memorable. And the irony is, when you no longer need closure, that's when people are most tempted to give it to you. When you don't go digging for answers, that's when she starts to feel the silence more than she ever did before. Your absence starts to speak. Your stillness starts to echo. Your strength, without a single word, becomes the loudest message of all. It's the opposite of what she prepared for. And when that happens, something powerful shifts, not just in how she sees you, but in how you see yourself. You start to realize that closure was never in her hands to begin with, that you were never waiting for her. You were just waiting to remember your worth. That's what the no contact period gave you. That space, that clarity, that reset. So Now when you show up, you're not there to rehash the pain. You're not fishing for a second chance. You're not hoping to convince her of anything. You're just showing up in your truth, peaceful, calm, whole. And that version of you is magnetic because it's not chasing. It's not striving. It's not emotionally indebted to her. It's simply present, centered, and powerful. That's the energy she won't be ready for. Because the truth is, most people don't expect you to outgrow the version of yourself they mistreated. They think they've seen the full range of your emotional palette. They think they know how you'll react. But when you evolve, not out of spite, not out of ego, but out of genuine growth, it breaks the mold. It forces a new dynamic, one that she can't control, one she didn't plan for. And that's the move she never saw coming. Let me tell you something, fellas. Most people don't realize after no contact, if you're going to reach out, or if you're even thinking about allowing someone back into your life, you have to understand this. The version of you that walks back into that dynamic cannot be the same version she walked away from. Here's the thing. Most women assume that if they wait long enough, if they give you space, you'll eventually come back the same. She thinks you'll come back still wondering what went wrong, still needing answers, still hoping that maybe this time she'll get it. But if you want to truly shift the dynamic, if you want to do the one thing she won't expect, you have to become someone she has to earn. She expects you to be passive. She expects the same emotional pattern. She expects that you'll be waiting at the door, even if it's disguised behind a casual message. But that's not who you are anymore. You've taken space. You've done the work. You've gone through the ache of detachment, and you've come out the other side. Now is the moment where you reintroduce yourself, but not with words, with energy, with a calm certainty that says, I'm not here to pick up the broken pieces. I'm here because I've already rebuilt myself. It's not about proving anything to her. It's not about showing her you're better off without her. That still makes her the center of the story. This is about showing up from a place where she no longer gets the privilege of the old version of you, the one who tolerated the bare minimum, the one who confused attention with affection, the one who made excuses for inconsistency. This time you're showing up as the version of you who knows his value, not in theory, but in practice. The you who no longer entertains half effort. The you who has boundaries, not walls, and standards that reflect a life of self-respect. And here's what's powerful. You don't need to say a word about it. You don't need to post cryptic quotes or tell her you've changed. She'll feel it. She'll feel it in how you speak, in what you don't say, in how little you try to impress her. She'll feel it when you don't rush to fill silences, when you don't cling to the moment, when you don't try to steer the conversation back to what we had. Because the you she's talking to now isn't trying to win her back. He's simply living his truth. And that truth is magnetic. When she realizes that he's no longer the emotional priority in your life, when she sees that your happiness isn't dependent on her validation, something shifts. She starts to realize, wait a minute, I used to have access to this. I used to be the one he shared his heart with. And now he's just here, calm, collected, and completely untethered to my approval. That's the moment the dynamic flips. That's the move she didn't expect. She didn't expect you to come back without the emotional neediness. She didn't expect to feel like she had to step up. She didn't expect that she'd have to work for your attention again. But that's the difference between someone who's just taking space and someone who's evolving during that space. It's tempting to use no contact as a tactic, as a strategy to get someone back. But when no contact becomes a period of growth, real internal growth, you no longer want what you used to want, at least not in the same way. You don't crave the old version of the relationship. You're not just hoping she'll say all the right things. You're watching actions. You're reading energy. You're tuned into how you feel around her. Does this still align with who I'm becoming? And if it doesn't, you're willing to walk. That's the ultimate shift. When you show up and you're willing to walk away, not because you're angry, not because you're playing a game, but because peace has become your baseline, that's when she knows you're different. And I promise you, that difference is undeniable. So the move she won't expect. It's not about saying the right thing. It's not even about reaching out or waiting for her to reach out. It's about who you are when the moment comes. When you finally speak again, whether it's a text, a call, or seeing each other face to face, she's expecting the old you, the one who made space for her even when she wasn't showing up fully, the one who tried to smooth things over, the one who deep down just wanted her back. But that man is gone. Now she's faced with someone who's clear, grounded, emotionally intelligent, and completely unattached to the outcome. Someone who isn't here to convince or chase or negotiate his worth. Someone who makes her realize, if I want to be in his world again, I have to earn my place. And trust me, she won't expect that. She might expect you to come back cold, bitter, defensive, maybe even a little needy. That's the image she has in her mind, because for most people, that's the pattern. After a period of silence, the typical move is to return with emotional baggage. Maybe there's anger still simmering, or a hidden hope of rekindling things. Either way, she's expecting something reactive, something that validates the idea that he still has emotional control. But when you come back with peace, when you show up calm, grounded, and radiating self-respect, that's when you completely disarm her. She doesn't expect it because she knows what she left. She remembers the version of you who was trying to make it work even when it hurt. She remembers the you that was giving more than receiving. So when you return, not with a plea, but with poise, it throws her off balance in the best possible way. Now, I'm not saying you need to go out of your way to prove anything. That's the key. You don't prove. You simply are. You let your energy speak before your words do. The moment you message or bump into her or share something online that reflects your current life, the goal isn't to make her jealous. It's to subtly show, I'm good. I didn't just survive. I evolved. And here's the thing. Positivity doesn't mean you fake a smile. It doesn't mean you pretend everything was okay. It means you've genuinely taken the time to heal and you found your peace. Not in her absence, but in your own presence. That's rare. Most people use time and distance to ruminate, to replay old memories, to wonder what could have been. But when you use no contact as an actual growth period, not a waiting room, that's when you come back different. Now, picture this. She hears from you or sees you out somewhere, and instead of drama or emotional overflow, she gets warmth, grace. You're genuinely happy to see her, not in a take me back kind of way, but in a I wish you well kind of way. That kills the ego because the ego was prepared for chaos. It was bracing itself to be begged, to be blamed, or to be worshipped. Instead, you offered peace. You offered a mirror that reflects back maturity. And that mirror says, this is who I am now, whether you're in my life or not. What's most powerful in that moment isn't what you say, it's what you don't say. You don't ask, why did you treat me like that? You don't bring up the late night texts she ignored. You don't relive the final argument. Why? Because that version of you, the one who needed those answers, he no longer runs the show. The man who's standing here now doesn't need closure because he became the closure. And this doesn't mean you're pretending it didn't hurt. It just means you've stopped letting the hurt define your worth. That's what she doesn't expect, that the same man she thought would spiral without her has built a life he actually enjoys. Maybe even more than he did when she was in it. You see, most women don't actually fear losing you physically. What shakes them is realizing they've lost emotional access to you. That even if you were to speak again, it wouldn't feel the same. The dynamic has shifted. The power balance has recalibrated. And that warm, kind, self-assured energy you now carry, that's no longer hers to influence. That's yours entirely. This is where the magic happens. When she sees you in this light, glowing but not for her, smiling but not because of her, thriving but with no trace of resentment, she has to sit with the version of you she never got to appreciate. And she realizes that the door she once casually closed now feels a lot heavier to reopen. Because now it's not just about whether you'd say yes again. It's about whether she's even earned the right to try. That's how you make the move she won't expect. Not by trying to be someone else, but by finally being yourself. The self that wasn't fully expressed when you were bending to fit into the relationship. Now you stand tall in your own frame. You don't need revenge. You don't need attention. You just need to show up in your peace and let that speak volumes. Sometimes the most unexpected move is silence, dressed as confidence. Don't bring up the past. Let her sit in it. It's such a simple idea, but it's powerful. Because here's the thing. When we come out of no contact, there's often this intense urge to unpack everything. To say, let me tell you how much you hurt me. Or here's everything I've been thinking about these past few months. And on the surface, that feels like closure. It feels like honesty. But in reality, it's often just another way to reconnect through pain. And that is not the connection you want. See, what she expects, what so many people expect, is that when someone breaks silence, they're coming with an emotional invoice. They're coming to say, hey, here's what you owe me. Here's what you need to answer for. And when you do that, as valid as those feelings might be, you end up anchoring yourself to the version of you that still needs something from her. That version is rooted in the past. And if you bring that version back into the conversation, she gets to sit comfortably in the role she used to play. You're back in a dynamic she already knows how to navigate. One where you're emotional and she's distant. One where you're explaining and she's just listening, or worse, not listening at all. But imagine this instead. You return after time apart and you say nothing about the past. You don't rehash the breakup. You don't list the ways she let you down. You don't bring up the promises that were broken or the ways she failed to show up. You simply arrive in the present moment, grounded, self-assured, and forward-focused. That silence, that absence of complaint or confrontation, that is what throws her off. Because now she is the one sitting with the past. She is left wondering, why isn't he bringing it up? Does he not care anymore? Has he moved on? Has he become indifferent to what we were? And that, my friend, is where the shift happens. When you don't bring up the past, it creates a vacuum. And vacuums beg to be filled. She starts thinking about the last conversation you had, the last thing she said, how she left it, how you left it. She goes back to all the things you might have said, and she begins replaying them in her own head, because you're not giving her a script to follow anymore. You're not giving her cues. You're not guiding the emotional journey. She has to face her own mirror without your narration. And make no mistake, that's silence. No, that's not avoidance. That's not suppression. That's not you being weak or refusing to speak up. That is restraint in its most powerful form. That's you saying, I've already felt what I needed to feel. I've processed it. I've grown from it. I don't need to dig it back up for you, because the real power lies in what you don't say. When you talk about the past, especially early after reinitiating contact, you risk giving her the false impression that you're still stuck there, that you're still emotionally tied to that version of the relationship. But when you don't bring it up at all, you communicate something so much deeper that you've already released yourself from it. And if she wants access to you now, she's going to have to meet you in the present, not pull you back into the mess she helped create. You see, emotional growth isn't always loud. It doesn't always announce itself with dramatic monologues or heartfelt confessions. Sometimes it's in the way you smile without needing to explain why you're okay. Sometimes it's in the way you let the silence do the talking. She might try to poke at it. She might say things like, you never said how you felt, or I'm surprised you're not more upset. And that's when you get to hold your power, not by jumping back into the narrative, but by simply saying, I've already made peace with it. Full stop. No follow-up, no explanation. It's about emotional minimalism. Doing less while saying so much more, because what you withhold can be just as meaningful as what you share. And when a woman sees that you're no longer emotionally invested in reliving old pain, she realizes she doesn't have that kind of hold on you anymore. That's where the regret creeps in. That's when she starts to reflect, because you're not trying to make her feel guilty. You're not demanding closure. You're not chasing an apology. You're just done. And when you're done, you're free. You're not tied to who she used to be or who you used to be with her. You're in motion. You're evolving. You've become a man who doesn't need a conversation about the past to validate the growth he's already lived through. That's what she won't expect. She won't expect the stillness, the calm, the lack of emotional volatility. She won't expect to meet a version of you who doesn't need to win because he's already won within himself. She won't expect you to let her sit in the discomfort of her own reflection while you move forward unbothered and unattached. So don't bring up the past. Let her feel its weight. Let her carry what she gave you to carry. And while she's doing that, you walk forward in peace. That's the real move. You don't need to give a whole monologue about how much you've changed. You don't have to send a long message spelling out how you healed, evolved, or stepped into a new version of yourself. That's the trap most people fall into. Thinking that transformation needs to be announced. It doesn't. In fact, the most powerful changes you'll ever go through are the ones that don't need to be spoken. They're just felt. When someone re-enters your life, especially someone who's used to having a certain level of control over you emotionally, they're not expecting you to show up calm. They're not expecting centered. They're definitely not expecting lightness. They're expecting drama, questions, unresolved emotions. They're expecting to find you in the exact same emotional place they left you in. And when you show up differently, when you walk back in without needing her to validate your worth or even acknowledge the past, that's when she pauses. That's when she starts questioning her assumptions. Let me tell you something. Showing that you've leveled up is not about changing your hairstyle. get in shape, or curating a better Instagram feed. That's surface level. That's the version of transformation that people sell you because it's easy to package. But true change, the kind that's magnetic, comes from something much deeper. It's in your energy. It's how you carry yourself. It's how you no longer react to things the way you used to. It's how you don't need closure anymore because you gave that to yourself. That's what catches people off guard. You want to know what really throws her off? It's when she reaches out and you're genuinely at peace, not pretending to be at peace, not putting on a performance, but actually they're in a place where you don't need anything from her anymore. That kind of peace is disarming. And it's not something you can fake. You can't replicate it with carefully crafted messages or timed replies. You get there by doing the real work, by facing the hard truths, by letting go of what you thought the relationship was going to be, by choosing yourself every single day when it would be easier to chase the ghost of what you lost. So when you finally do make contact again, whether by choice or circumstance, don't fall into the trap of trying to prove your glow up. Let it speak for itself. Let your calm be louder than your words. Let your self-respect take up more space than your need to be understood. And when she tries to prod at the past, when she wants to know why you went quiet, what you were thinking, what changed, you don't owe her a detailed report. You don't owe her anything that takes you out of the energy you're in now. Because here's the truth. If you've really done the work, you'll realize you're not coming back to the same dynamic. You're not walking into this with the same version of you that once tolerated breadcrumbs, confusion, or emotional inconsistency. You've outgrown the conversations that go nowhere. You've outgrown trying to decode mixed signals. You're no longer interested in proving your value to someone who should have seen it from the start. And when that's the place you're operating from, everything about your presence shifts. You don't chase. You don't beg. You don't shrink. You simply exist in your truth. And that truth, that self-assurance is what commands respect, even from the one who once took you for granted. And I know some people worry, what if she doesn't see how much I've changed? But that's the wrong question. The real question is, does it even matter anymore if she sees it? Because if your change is authentic, you'll realize it was never about getting her to notice. It was about you becoming the person who no longer needs her notice. That's the shift. That's the evolution. When your life starts reflecting your standards, your peace becomes your protector, and you stop letting other people's attention define your value. That's what she won't expect. She won't expect you to be whole. She won't expect you to be happy. She won't expect you to be free. And the most unexpected move of all is showing her that your world didn't pause without her in it. That's when everything changes. The most unexpected move you can make after no contact is not running back with your heart in your hands, hoping for something to be different. It's not about throwing the doors wide open and waiting with bated breath for them to walk back in and finally say all the things you've longed to hear. No, the real curveball, the thing that throws someone completely off their game, is when you leave the door just slightly ajar, not flung open like a desperate invitation. Because here's the truth. When someone loses you, when they feel the cold space where your warmth used to be, they expect that if they knock, you'll come running. They expect access. They think you're just one message away. They believe the moment they miss you, you'll be right there, available, waiting, hoping. That expectation is often the foundation of their confidence. But when you go no contact, not as a game, but as a genuine act of self-respect and healing, you send a clear signal. I'm no longer participating in something that wasn't serving me. That silence isn't just empty space. It's powerful. It's you reclaiming your peace, and what comes next matters just as much as that silence. So when the time comes and you reappear, not because you need something, not because you're chasing closure, not because you're secretly hoping she's changed, but simply because you've grown into a new version of yourself, your energy shifts everything. What she doesn't expect is your neutrality. She doesn't expect to hear calm in your voice. She doesn't expect kindness that isn't bait. She doesn't expect the absence of emotional charge, because most people return either with fire or neediness. But you show up cool, composed, complete. You let her feel your absence, even in your presence, and then you leave the door just slightly ajar. You're not saying, come in, let's start over. You're not saying, prove to me you've changed. You're simply acknowledging, I've changed. You're no longer who you were when she left. You're not operating from the same script. Your self-worth isn't tethered to whether or not she comes back. You can say something like, I genuinely hope you're doing well. Life has shifted a lot for me these past few months, and I feel more like myself than I have in a long time. I wish you well on your journey. That's it. No bitterness, no invitations, no expectations, just peace. And that is incredibly disarming, because people expect drama. They expect resentment. They expect one last argument, one more emotional conversation. They prepare for either resistance or submission, but they rarely expect poise. They rarely expect someone to return from the silence with grace. When you don't fight to be understood, when you don't ask for clarity, when you don't reach for the past with trembling hands, that's when she starts to wonder. She wonders who you became without her. She wonders if someone else has your attention. She wonders if you still think about her, if you ever look back. And here's the powerful part. It doesn't matter if she wonders or not, because you're not acting for a reaction. You're living from a place of truth. And that truth doesn't need to be defended. Leaving the door slightly ajar means that if the universe ever does bring her back into your life, it won't be out of obligation or manipulation. It'll be because the foundation is right. It means you're not waiting at the threshold. You're just not bitterly slamming it shut either. You're at peace either way. That kind of emotional maturity is rare. It's attractive. It's magnetic, because it shows you're not afraid of love, but you're not starving for it either. You're not blocking the possibility of something better, but you're not anchoring yourself to something that wasn't working. You're standing in the middle, grounded, unshaken, and if she does come back, you're not welcoming her back into the same dynamic. She'll have to meet this version of you. She has to rise to meet your purpose.